Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please? Councilman Rogers.
Let us pray. Our God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day, for the blessings you've given to each and every one of us here. We pray tonight that you'll be with us and guide us as we go about the business of the city. We pray that you'll be with those that may be traveling during this holiday season. Be with them so that they may have a safe and be able to visit their friends. We pray that you'll continue to be with those serving the armed forces abroad, serving in harm's way. Be with them, guard them, protect them. These things we pray in Christ's name, and amen.
Amen. Councilman Conley, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, Mr. Leach is joining us this evening. He has the flu, so I asked him not to come this evening and spread his holiday cheer. So he is at home, but he will be joining us as we progress through the meeting this evening. Jim, can you hear us?
I can. Good evening.
Thank you. The Vienna Wildcats ran into a problem, so they're not going to be here this evening. We hope we'll get them over here in January, but we will not have the Wildcat football team tonight. So we move on to the public forum. We have one person who signed up to speak this evening, Brenda Powell.
My name is Brenda Powell, and I want to thank you very much for having an opportunity to be able to come up before you and speak this evening. I had stated quite a few months back, in regarding to the water testing, and I did get the results back on it, and I wanted to share it with you. The thing is 1,461 pages of testing. That being said, I didn't print them off, but I will be happy to provide them to the Public Works Director through an email if you'd like to have them. Actually, I want to thank those that participated in the city, actually, to let me get the samples to be able to send in for this testing here in the city. The person that contacted me regarding it and giving me the results said that they had performed analysis on the water samples that were collected. They targeted 29 PFAS, including PFA samples that were collected, including Gen X. The reporting method limited was 10 mg/L, or 10 parts per trillion. None of the PFAS were presented at concentrations above the reported limit. They were all less than 10 mg/L. They have a list of the components that they looked up. I don't know whether you want me to go through those or not, but they did list those, and they will be on the papers that actually for the test results. The other thing that they actually tested for were the VOCs. I got the result samples back from them. Out of 56 VOCs, which is the volatile organic compound, were targeted in their method. Most were below detection. The VOCs that were detected at the highest concentrations were the 4-THMS that form when chlorine is added to drinking water for purpose of disinfecting. The drinking water standards for the sum concentration of the 4-TMS is 80 UG/L in the water samples that I collected, and the sum concentration of 4 of the TMS was 5 UG/L or less, which is very low compared to most drinking waters around the country. He also stated that other VOCs were found in some, but not all samples were of those listed all levels close to the method reporting limit and were well below the drinking water standards of those compounds. Overall results, tab for drinking water standards. Said note that the method reporting limits are much lower than those of commercial labs. Most likely, commercial labs will report non-detect for the VOCs we were able to detect. Also, when we report the concentration, that is our method reporting limit. It is reported below 0.03 Ug/L in the other samples. And said overall, the results of your water is very encouraging. No detectable PFAs, very low disinfections by products, and either non-detect or detect close to our reporting levels for the VOCs. So I wanted to share that information with you. I said that I would when I got it, and I'm doing just exactly that. Something that I wanted to bring to light with the actual filters is with the filter solve 600. That's actually the active carbon that's in the filters. My understanding is that it does remove mercury, but the concern that I have also is the actual metals that are in the groundwater that was tested through Cameron and C.D. Smith, that maybe it would be a consideration for the city to possibly look into magnetic carbon that can be mixed in with that that's already there. I don't know whether it's something that could possibly be done so that to avoid the possibility at some point in time that it's in the groundwater could filter it and take care of it. That was my suggestion. I don't know whether it can be done or not, but it's what I had thought. Something else that with the filters is that I think that the people of the city need to really know that DuPont, well, they probably already know, but the DuPont's not going to take care of everything that's associated with those filters forever. There is a time limit of when that they will be no longer doing anything, and in that case, the city will be responsible for everything. And I didn't know whether or not that there's a plan that's being set up somewhere along the line to be incorporated to be able to take care of the money that's going to cost for everything that's going to be associated with it. So it's just some concerns too that I just wanted to bring forward, and just thought I wanted, I just want to take the time to bring that into light. Do you have any questions or anything like
No,
that?
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, any comment? May I comment?
Okay.
I just want to comment, Brenda, that I don't know how many people in this room have been, but the movie Dark Waters is at Regal Theaters, and it has to do with PFOA or C8. And if you haven't had a chance, you need to go see it. It's done quite well as far as what I am concerned. Mr. Tennant, who basically was one of the first people that started this with DuPont, and the amount of cattle that he lost as a farmer, and I'm sure it financially gave a toll to him, but he eventually anyway, he had some of the CA that gave him some problems as far as health is concerned in it. And in the movie there is a couple sections, one with a cow that when the lawyer goes to his farm, that the cow goes crazy, and he has to end up shooting it. And If you notice, there is also a German Shepherd dog, and it's going around in circles and falling down, getting up, and I'm sure, you know, that's probably the C8 also are supposed to have an effect on it. But if you haven't been there, you need to go see it. I thought it was very good as far as that was concerned, and I think the state of West Virginia also has realized that, and they're in the process of trying to pass a bill dealing with clean waters in the state.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for December the 12th, 2019. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present this evening with the exception of Councilman Bibby, who is still on medical leave. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on November the 14th, 2019 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Because Mr. Leach is not here with us this evening, I'll do the reconciliation of funds. You all should have the reconciliation of funds dated December the 9th, 2019. By looking at the reconciliation, you can see that the city is solvent and that all of our bills are paid. Under unfinished business this evening, we move on. It's an ordinance on second reading, amending 907.04 Beautification Committee. Mr. Skogstad, would you take us through this, please?
One thing that I noticed, and unfortunately I noticed it too late, is in the original adoption in paragraph A, there was a sentence that was left out in one of the drafts. There should be a draft that you have that allows the mayor to, the ordinance that's in front of council now has the appropriate sentence that says all members except as set out below shall be appointed and approved by the mayor, and which shall consist of not more than 11 members. When that was initially read, that sentence should have been in there. For whatever reason, it was left out. I would ask, in order to correct that. Hold on, was it the? There was a sentence that was left out.
No.
Do you have a copy with you?
Gave it to him.
Would you talk in your microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. And do you have the updated one?
Yeah.
Can I have that? Thank you. All right. Well, I apologize. Paragraph 3, A3, was left out, the exception, and I made several drafts of this. I would ask if council could move to amend to have that reinserted. The exception says the residence requirement may be waived for any person who offers a skill or possesses knowledge that may be beneficial to furthering the goals and objectives of the Tree and Beautification Commission, or for any person who is employed by the City of Vienna or the Vienna Utility Board, or owns or operates a business in the corporate limits of the city. That should have been in that draft that was initially sent to council, and I'm not sure why there was the mix-up. But I would ask if council could move to amend to add that language before second reading. It's not a substantial change.
I'll move to amend it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend the original reading of the ordinance 90704 to include section 3A.
Yeah, it's A3 actually.
A3.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. It has been amended to add section A3.
And lastly, if you recall from the original proposal, this was the intent is to update our tree and beautification ordinance. One of the issues that we have is the number of people that want to serve on the board. This changes it to reflect the 11 folks that we have now. It puts a cap on it at 11. It allows the Tree and Beautification Commission to operate with a smaller number in the event that people no longer are as willing to volunteer for that group. But this allows the people that presently have a desire to participate to do that. It also changes some of the requirements of the Tree and Beautification Commission. to try and open it up to more people who are either residents or business owners or employees, people that still have significant ties to the city. But the way the restrictions are now, there are bodies that don't exist that are responsible for putting people on the board, and this just makes it easier and makes one less barrier for people to be appointed to the board.
Okay. I'll read the ordinance by title. This is an ordinance amending 907.04, the creation of the Tree and Beautification Committee, changing the number of members and requirements to be a member of the Vienna Tree and Beautification Commission, and adding attendance requirements. This is a second reading for the adoption of the amendment to 907.04. I'll entertain a motion for the approval on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the amendments to 90704. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor on second reading of the adoption of the ordinance amending 90704, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No. Ordinance carries on second reading. Moving on to new business this evening. The first item on our agenda this evening under new business is a resolution for the CAPER for the Community Development Block Grants. Tony Tiano, would you please explain this to us?
Before you tonight is the CAPER, which is the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for the city's Community Development Block Grant Program. And it's an annual report for our grant period, which was October the 1st, 2018 to September the 30th of this year. The report just goes over the activities that were accomplished during that time period. And we look back to the annual action plan to see what our goal was. And it was during that time period that the city hoped to provide assistance to 17 low and moderate income households in terms of whether it was window replacement, roofs, gutters and downspouts, whatever it might be. And I'm pleased to say that we did reach the goal. We served 17 households. 10 of those received new windows and doors. The other 7 received a combination of roofs, heating and air conditioning systems, gutters and downspouts, etc. All total, we spent $85,273. I should also mention that during the grant period, we had made the budget revision to provide funds to the ADA adult playground. However, since it was not completed during or by September the 30th, it won't be reflected until next year's report. So, do you have any questions on it? That long document to find everything out.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I'll read the resolution approving the CAPER. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Vienna, West Virginia, that the attached Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, commonly known as the CAPER, for the city's Community Development Block Grant Program for the time period of October the 1st, 2018 through September the 30th, 2019 be approved as attached. This document is being adopted following the completion of the necessary public notices and public hearings. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution approving the CAPER.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the CAPER. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No? The ayes have it. Tony, do you need a copy of that this evening?
If Kathy
get
can
it
just
to her.
email me the resolution tomorrow.
I will.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much. The second item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading creating a new zoning district called the Education District. Mr. Skogstad, if you would read,
Sure. Do you want to read the whole thing?
well, I don't know that we need to do it all of it, but whatever you feel comfortable with,
I'd prefer to read it by title. I think it's been distributed and posted.
it has.
This is an ordinance creating a new zoning district, the educational district, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it essentially adds to our zoning ordinance an E1 district that has certain characteristics that as are set out below. And I mean, if you have questions, I'd gladly answer them.
Okay. This is an ordinance on first reading, creating a new zoning district known as the educational district. This pertains to Ohio Valley University. Specifically, we have, they're the only educational facility that we have within the city limits of Vienna that is not a Wood County Board of Education school. And what this does is it changes that zoning district from R1 to E1. So this is an ordinance creating a new zoning district, the educational district. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby creates the following zoning district: 1322.13 E-1 Educational Institution District. I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the creation of a new zoning district, E1.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance creating a new zoning district, E1, on first reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance on first reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion carries on first reading. There's a 30-day requirement for publishing, so this will be on the agenda, the second agenda in January.
Yeah, we need to send a certified letter to the college just so that we have something for the record because they're the only property that's being affected. We've already done the Class 2 legal advertisement. So if we set it on the 23rd, that allows enough time for that certified letter to get there and for them to have notice of the final adoption.
Would you make a note of that, please? Second reading, thank you, all right. The next item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading conveying the 31st Street property. Mr. Skogstad.
This ordinance is the final step in the disposition of property. So to attempt to avoid some of the confusion that we had with the bid acceptance, I put the address and the complete property description there. This requires 2 readings, and once this is completed, the closing can take place. So that's all there is.
All right. This is an ordinance authorizing the sale of the 31st Street garage property located at 400 31st Street, Vienna, West Virginia, as described. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby authorizes the sale of, as well as authorizes the mayor, his designee, and the city attorney to take any steps and execute any and all documents reasonably necessary to facilitate the sale of the 31st Street garage located at 400 31st Street, Vienna, West Virginia, further described, and then it goes into the legal description. So I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the conveying of the 31st Street property.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
So, been moved and seconded that we approve on first reading the ordinance authorizing the sale of the 31st Street garage. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor on first reading of the ordinance authorizing the sale of the 31st Street garage, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? No. All right, motion carries on first reading. The next item on our agenda this evening is item number 4. It is a general fund budget revision number 3. This item right here is a transfer of money from the capital reserve account of $121,000. It moves it from capital reserve over into the streets line item 570-59, and it will be used for the purchase of an end loader / wheel loader. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the general fund budget revision number 3.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve general fund budget number 3. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, what is this piece of equipment we're trying to get, and I know Craig's here, as far as the whole concept of this money's needed, what the reason and things like that? Because my thing is, I know Roger Bibby's not here, but I'm always against these budget revisions. I know we submit our budgets and then we come back and do these budget revisions and move money around, so, I know if it's not a dire need or emergency situation, I don't want to support it, but if, that's what I want to ask Craig about as far as the need for the piece of equipment and what you're currently using and why does it have to be a new thing? Why can't something be refurbished like we've tried to do? So that's just kind of general information I'd like to know.
Let me answer that for you, Mike.
All right.
And then if I don't do it to your satisfaction, then we'll ask Craig.
That's cool.
All right? So this would be a replacement for a 23-year-old John Deere 710 backhoe. This backhoe we've worked on this thing over the years, and I've looked at this thing, and the bushings on both the front end and the back end are completely wore out. It is not safe for our employees to drive. The floor inside the cab is completely rusted through in spots. So we'd have to put a whole new floor in this thing in order to do it. It has issues with the brake system on it. They lock up when you drive it. And there is a hole in the head of the motor that they've done all kinds of things to try to stop the leakage of the fluids out of it, and it just won't do it anymore. It also requires new batteries. The hydraulic cylinders on them need to be rebuilt. The valve body's defective. It has an extended boom on it, which is what's needed because of the reach that's required. This new piece of equipment, it raises high enough that we can actually load the salt into the back of our dump trucks. The other pieces of equipment that we have do not have that lifting capability. So what you have to do is you have to take this backhoe and you have to get it right up against the dump truck and then shake it in order for the material to fall out of it instead of being high enough where you can just literally tip the bucket in order to put the salt in the bins. Also, the front axle mount is worn out. Every one of these items that are on here are very expensive to fix, and it's basically wore out. We've used it for 23 years, and we've gotten our money's worth out of it, and basically it's scrap value is all you're going to get out of it now. So that's the reason why that it's on there, and the reason why it's being done as a budget revision instead of a line item is because we do not have a safe way to load the salt into the truck so that we can keep our streets safe.
I'd like to chime in on that a little bit.
Hang on just a second, Roger.
Sorry.
No, that's cool.
All right, you're done. All right, Roger.
And just to follow up a little bit on what Councilman Elam said, and Mayor, I understand all of those things that you're talking about, but at the same time, I would rather see a document with a quote on what it costs to rebuild than simply be told that it's not feasible to do so. Also, right now there's an absolute glut of good used, late modeled, low hours equipment all over the country. I get books probably at least every other day, the size of a phone book that's full of equipment for sale or ready to be auctioned off. I see absolutely no reason, especially under the light of the fact that we're primarily doing this to load salt, which is a seasonal type thing, and understand that there's other uses, but that's why we need it. I see absolutely no reason why we can't at least have presented to us as an option to buy this piece of equipment as a used piece of equipment. You know, in my opinion, this is just another in a long line of irresponsible spending practices. You know, we talked about the reconciliation of funds a little bit ago. And if you look at it at face value, it looks good. But let's look at that just a little bit deeper. Currently, right now, if you look at the general fund and the capital reserve fund, there's about $7.2 million in there. In January of 2013, right before home rule kicked in, there was also about $7.2 million in there. But since then, through the 1% home rule, we've taken in around $14 million. None of that $14 million has shown up on this reconciliation of funds. And again, in my opinion, it's because of these type of spending practices that $14 million or a portion of it is not there. There's other options, such as leasing a piece of equipment, especially when you're talking about loading salt for 3 or 4 months out of the year. Obviously, we don't want our employees doing something that's not safe. But automatically, we look at something that's new, bright and shiny and pretty. That is not what we have to do. You know, it just amazes me how often I hear that it's not feasible to fix, whether it's a front end loader, whether it's a street sweeper, whether it's a vac truck. You know, and I'll applaud Chief Scholl. He did rebuild one of his fire engines and saved the city thousands upon thousands of dollars. That's the example that we need to follow. So therefore, I'm not at all in favor of this budget revision, and I'm certainly not in favor at this point, without having other options presented to us, in favor of going out and spending $120-some thousand, I believe it is, to buy a piece of equipment to load salt.
Well, obviously, there are way more uses for this piece of equipment than just loading salt. But, you know, I think that you failed to realize, Mr. Conley, that this piece of equipment's used every day. And, you know, it's one of those things where after 23 years, it gets to a point where it's just not feasible to spend, you know, $50,000 or $60,000 having all of this work done. And so, you know, this new piece of equipment, if we take care of it as we have, and we get 20 plus years of service out of it, you know, that works out to about $5,000 a year for a piece of equipment that, you know, would be a very vital piece of equipment to our department. So thank you. And any other comments?
Yeah, but it was just stated that we have other pieces of equipment to handle those other duties, that the issue with this piece of equipment is that boom does not go high enough to load the salt, which happens 2, 3, 4 months out of the year. But my understanding, based on what you were just saying, is we do have other equipment that will take care of those other tasks.
This piece of equipment, because of the way it functions, would be very handy, and it's the proper size for the city of Vienna, where you could drive it on the streets and use for various street projects throughout the year. So it's not like it would only be used in the wintertime. It would be used year round. So it is a very versatile piece of equipment.
Can I repeat one more time? The market is full. There is a glut of this equipment all over the United States of America, of very good, late-modeled, low-houred equipment that would probably be half the price. What is wrong with us using common sense and spending the citizens' money wisely and looking at it in that manner, at least as an option, other than automatically going to the new?
Okay. Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion for the approval of general fund budget revision number 3.
So moved.
We already said.
Second.
Okay. Jim made the motion, Bruce seconded it.
Right.
Okay.
So we did it.
All right. All right, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the approval of general fund budget revision number 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Let the record reflect it passes 4-2. Next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval from the street department for the compact wheel loader. Sealed bids for the purchase of a compact wheel loader were opened on November the 26th, 2019 at 9 a.m. with the following results. Walker Machinery bid $120,970.19. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the purchase of the compact wheel loader is Walker Machinery in the amount of $120,970.19. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the bid from Walker Machinery for the compact wheel loader.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, Jim?
Second.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from Walker Machinery for $120,970.19. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the approval of the bid from Walker Machinery in the amount of $120,970.19, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
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 Motion carries 4-2. The last item on our agenda this evening is a report from our IT department. Our new IT director, Mr. Chris McGrew, is here this evening. Chris, if you would take us through this, please.
Good evening. What I'm looking to do on this, and I'm bringing for you guys today, is a network renewal, basically to secure our current infrastructure. The way that our network currently is right now, there are 7 points of entry that we have to maintain on a constant basis, and with the just recent attack on the Wood County schools of virtue of $3 million, that scares me. What I am recommending here is for a private fiber network to connect all of our current locations. And if you wanna move that over here, I can.
What do you want to do, Chris? Move it in?
Yeah.
It's on the end.
On the end, the other end.
Okay, right here. All right. I know it's kind of hard to see with the blue on there, but currently,
Chris, can you turn that mic towards you just a little better?
yeah, sorry about that.
I don't think it's on.
Currently, this is what we are looking to go to. Currently, the way that our network is now is each one of these blue locations is our sites. They all go out to the internet and then come back in order to communicate. So there is, every time the traffic goes from the city building to the police department, or the city building to the fire department, the city building to the senior center, all that information, all that traffic goes out to the internet and then comes back into those apartments. What this network is gonna do is it's going to put a private fiber network that is going to allow us to connect everything inside of one firewall versus trying to go outside of 7 firewalls and back in. So it will ultimately secure our network immensely. It will leave 1 point of entry versus 7 points of entry. It will also allow us to be able to keep. Okay. There, is that better?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This will allow us to be able to keep our security protocols up to date. It will allow us to be able to keep our encryption up where it should be in 1 location versus 7 locations. Built into this, we are also asking that we are also going to put in a brand new phone system. Our phone system that we have now is a bit dated. I believe it was put in 2004, I think. And it is way out of date. The money that we are currently paying for all of this, and I will move this over here so you can see. All right, so right now what we pay is we pay for 2 different cable bills. We pay for one, or internet bills. Suddenlink at 7 locations, we're paying $1,171.56 a month. At a couple of locations, we have a secondary for failover internet for CAS cable. We are paying $319.80 a month. Our Frontier phone bill, we pay on average $1,290.27 a month. We pay per phone call with Frontier. So anything over the $900 base pay is a per phone call payment. Our sonic walls, which are our firewalls, we have 7 of them. We are paying on average $916.66 per month. And then this log me in thing that you see, that is our remote technology that we use to connect to each computer so we don't have to go to all locations all the time. We can remote in. That is a software that allows us to go outside to come back in to remote to another location, which will be obsolete. We won't need that with this new system, and we're paying $166 a month. That totals up to $3,864.96 a month for what we are currently doing, which is out of date, unsecure, in my opinion. And this new solution that we are going to go with through Segra is $4,000 a month. It is $135.04 more than what we are paying right now, and it gives us a lot more security. It gives us a brand new Cisco IP phone system. It gives us a hosted firewall with the latest ransomware technologies. And I got Kevin here from Segra to talk about the new ransomware detection piece that's built into their new firewall that they have.
Hey, good evening. So the way we would design this network, in most instances, your internet is at your site. It's there. So the way we would design this private network, we would host your internet in our serving center, which is in Waynesboro, Virginia. So basically, your locations would then include our site where we pick up the internet. So it all looks like a private network. You're not actually accessing the internet at your prim. So internet would then sit at our site, our serving center in Waynesboro, and then the firewall would be there as well too. So essentially, one of our locations become an additional site into the city's network. So it much more secure than currently what you guys have, where you're using internet at each site and you're having a firewall and an actual setup there at each location.
One other thing that I want to point out on this too is with the internet that we will get through Segra, it is not a consumer internet. So we're not on the same traffic that all home users are on. We are on a commercial internet that is it is segregated away from the public internet. So there will be no lag. There will be no internet degradation when 5 million people jump online to start streaming YouTube or Netflix or gaming or anything like that. Let's see, one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, in front of you guys, I gave you all this proposal packet from Segra. This kind of explains a lot of stuff that we were talking about. It goes over who Segra is as a company. Segra used to be Lumos. Lumos and Segra actually merged together, and I've worked with Lumos for probably the last 8 years that I've been in West Virginia, and I've known their fiber networks very well. They offer a 99.999% uptime. That's 5 nines of availability. So there's no need for failovers. There's no need for secondary internets. There's no need for any of that other stuff, because the way that their network works is if a link goes down here, it's just routed another way in the loop. So there's no downtime of our network. So we will be up 99.99% of the time. So this packet is for you guys to have, and that's it. Any questions?
For Chris or the other gentleman?
Yeah.
Suddenlink and CAS offer 3 services: TV, phone, and internet. I like what you're saying here, but what about the third one, or TV or local channels? Will we still have to pay Suddenlink and CAS part of that?
These internet bills here, this is just for internet.
Okay.
These bills here have nothing whatsoever to do with
The TV.
with the TV.
Okay,
The internet bill is completely separate from the TV and these.
right. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, is there anything like installation charges, setup charges, any other fees associated
It's
with this?
all built in. There was a $270,000 construction cost that I got Segra to eat 99% of that. So that was a good strategy on my part. Sorry, dude.
We build those things back in. That's all part of our model, the way we construct our agreements and things of those natures. So we build all those things back into this. Yeah, and to add this, I mean, you're gonna get all new fiber built in. So this is actually a construction project that will take place in these locations here. So we will construct all new fiber facilities into these sites here.
And we're looking at about a 6-month build time too. So they have to run fiber to each one of our locations. They're putting in top of the line Cisco networking equipment at each location that we will connect into. So what we do is we connect our network into their stuff, and that's how we connect back in. It's all done through the Cisco protocols, which I mean I can get into a lot of that stuff, but you guys would be like, what? So there's so much value to this, and there's so much more that we're going to be getting for only $135 more than what we're currently paying, and the security level is going to go from here to here. And you know, with the fact that these companies that are out there writing this ransomware and stuff, they're not attacking Macy's in New York anymore, because those guys are spending millions and millions of dollars to secure their networks. They're attacking Wood County schools, asking for $3 million. They're attacking small towns because, well, they know that small towns are like, well, it's not broke, don't fix it. So that's kind of my concern.
Chris, what is the contract terms as far as
What
with
did we say, 5
Segra?
years? Yeah, I think we're this 5-year contract with a every year renewal option. So we can, if we decide after a year that, you know, hey, this wasn't what we decided, you know, we have outs that way. I think there's
We work with several municipalities across the states. There are certain addendums that we have, which are standard, which our legal allows us to work with, that there's certain things in there, clauses that, you know, we work with municipalities. I can share that with you guys. There's several different things in that addendum that gives you guys a lot of flexibility year over year, as Chris was saying.
If we decided, I'm sorry, if we decided for some reason to opt out, which I don't imagine that we would, but if we did, is that like a buyout versus a just get out clause?
I'm not 100%. I don't. Yeah, there's not a huge buyout to it, because there's not the construction that they put in is not just for us, because there are other companies around. I know Parkersburg is moving to this next year. They're waiting on their Frontier contract to run out. The 911 center already has a Segra circuit in there, which will actually benefit us in the long run, because right now with our police department, with the new Zerker mobile system that they have in, the new, what is that called, Chief? With the whole Zerker system, it's a their case system. Everything reports back to the 911 center, and the way that it goes back there now is we have to VPN from our location to their location. We won't have to do that anymore, because we'll be on the same circuit. We just turn that circuit on, and it's one continuous loop from us to them, a secure loop that doesn't have to go outside and back in.
Okay. Any more questions?
Because why do we have 3 internet bills? I don't understand that. I mean, I'm not IT savvy.
We only have 2 internet bills. Let me bring this back up here. We have 2. We have the Suddenlink, which is our primary internet, and then we have CAS at the city building, the police department, Public Works, and I believe the fire department as a failover. If Suddenlink was to go down, we would just move everything over to CAS, and we would still have internet and be able to run here. The Frontier is the phone bill. So that's not an internet bill. That is strictly the phone. And with all of this, with this 4,000, That's gonna include a brand-new phone system, a brand-new state-of-the-art phone system, and they've already got all of our numbers. We've done everything with all of the phones that we are going to need. Everything is built into this, and that's the price that we're gonna pay.
Mr. Skogstad?
Well, with the projected cost being about, what, $48,000 a year, our ordinances require that anything in excess of $10,000 be done through a competitive bid. Are there other companies that are able to provide the same or similar services?
No.
And there's no company that can provide what you're saying?
There's no other company around that provides fiber at this point. Suddenlink's trying to get there, but they're not there yet. The fastest that they can do is they can provide a coaxial connection to each location, but it's still on a consumer grade.
And the fiber requires the installation of actual physical lines.
Yes.
In the event that this project went south, who owns the lines?
As far as the lines,
The fiber optics.
The infrastructure would belong to us. I mean, it would be our fiber that we would construct.
So you would have to you would own it?
So we already have a large fiber presence within Parkersburg, Vienna. So what we would do, we would splice into that existing infrastructure and then build out into your facilities.
So that you're going to run, you have, West Virginia has the largest fiber trunk, one of the largest fiber trunk systems. It's dark in the entire country because of geography. It's just not used. Are you saying that from that trunk, from whatever active parts of the trunk system that you own, you're going to roll fiber to each of the individual buildings?
Correct.
And you would retain ownership of that?
Yes.
And if the agreement ends, are you going to, are we going to be charged for removing that?
No, we wouldn't remove the facilities once they were already constructed and built in. Typically what we would do, we would pull our DMARC equipment out. Any switches, routers, anything of that nature, we would pull.
So who would have, so would the city have ownership, or would we have to deal with you to remove it?
You're not necessarily removing the fiber infrastructure itself. I mean, the fiber would still be on the poles or in the conduit. I mean, it's there. It's not something we would take and then pull all the way back and then actually, splice it back out and remove it.
And I'm sure all this would be covered in any agreement.
Exactly, yes.
But, and you're able to offer internet access,
Yes.
individual firewalls, and remote access and what have you. Where are the technicians?
So there are some here in Parkersburg. Charleston's our main hub for West Virginia. I don't know that exact count. I could get that for you. I know we've looked at that for the city of Parkersburg more recently.
Is part of the $48,000 cost, does that cover service and repairs?
Yes.
Okay.
Your maintenance for your Cisco phone system is built into that number as well too.
so if we have a phone, currently now, if we have a phone go down, we have to buy another phone because we own our phone system. If we have a phone node go down, we have to find that node, and then we pay AEC to come out and they reprogram it, they put it in, so all that time our phone system is down. With the current phone, or with the new phone system, it's a virtual phone switch, so there's very slim chance of it to go down. It's all on virtual technology, so there's no physical switch anymore. It's all hosted through our firewall, or through the main location where our firewall is located, on a virtual server. So if that physical server that the virtual server is goes down, it just what is called vMotions. It just moves to another box, and it just stays up and running. If we have a phone that goes down, we just hey, our phone's down. They drop ship us another one. I've also worked out with him that we have a few extra phones on hand. So, if we have one that goes down and they can't get us one until tomorrow, I can just throw another phone in place. And then when a new phone comes in, I just ship the other one, the defective one, back.
All right. Chris, thank you. Thank you. Kevin?
Yes.
Thank you. It's on the bottom. Well, that concludes our agenda for this evening. We'll now move to council comments. And before I open it up, I want to clarify something. I always hate to speak publicly when I'm not sure about what the answer is. And so I've asked our city attorney about the comments that Mr. Connolly made about all of the equipment that's for sale all over the country. And I was pretty sure that I was right, but I want to say our bidding procedures do not allow us to go out and buy used equipment at auction. So the concept that Mr. Connolly is referring to is not allowed by our ordinances. If at some point the city would want to change that, then we would have to change our purchasing procedure. So that is not possible to do what Mr. Connolly suggested at this time.
You said at auction, is there a mechanism that you can buy used without going through an auction process?
But our bidding procedure requires us to put it out for bid, which we did. And so, at this time, we would have to customize our bidding procedures in order to accommodate what you are suggesting. Okay? Council comments. Yes, sir, Bruce.
Tomorrow at 11 o'clock is the ribbon cutting for Wood County Senior Center. The Senior Center is located behind Kimes Funeral Home in Parkersburg between Kimes and DuPont. Starts at 11 o'clock. They'll have open house there from 11 to 5 o'clock, I believe. Also, if you want to skip that, you can come to our Senior Center and have a nice ham dinner, okay? It starts at 12. Thank you.
Other council comments this evening?
Yes, I do, Mayor. At the last council meeting, I requested that in all of our future agendas that we start having some pre-budget discussions. That didn't happen, so I'm going to make that same request again. There's things that we as council need and should be discussing pertaining to the budget before we get the can kicked too far down the road. The one item, the department that I asked about first was HR, and I again think that is something that we need to look at, and I'm going to just give you a brief example of what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go back again to the budget just prior to home rule. We had a budget then of $6 million. We have a budget now that's pushing $10 million. At that time, we had a salaries and wages that was $1.8 million. It's now $3.1 million. Our insurance at that time was $868,000. It's now $1.2 million. Our subtotal personal services back at that time was a total of $3.3 million. It's now $5.2 million. That represents about 54% of our total revenue that we project coming in. And that's something that we need to take a serious look at. I understand, every year we hear, we haven't heard anything back from the insurance yet. Well, we need to convey some things, in my opinion, to the insurance before we get those numbers back. In my opinion, we need to say, what do we need to do to reduce the city's exposure on this insurance by 10%? And I don't know, but those are the things that we need to be talking about. And I don't know what that exposure reduction would be, whether it's in out of pocket, whether it's deductibles, whether it's an employee share. I don't know, but these are things that we need to be talking about before it goes to insurance and wait on a number to come back at the last minute, at the 11th hour for us to just approve. So again, I state, I would like for us to have the availability on each and every agenda between now and that time to look at some preliminary budget conversations.
I discussed your request at the department head meeting, which we had last week, and the departments that you're speaking of, especially the HR department, Roger, there are no numbers. We've been through this before, and I know that you asked about the insurance committee, and the insurance committee's been disbanded. Whatever discussions are held for the proposals that come forth will be done publicly in front of council. So we will get Mr. Swindeman down here to explain all of the options to the council, and at that time, council can make the decision as to what choice they choose, what direction they choose to go with our health insurance plan. So what you're asking for, to bring, the HR department in here, there is nothing that she can give you that is not as it is today. Once those numbers start to roll out, that is when Mr. Schwindeman will come. He's more than willing to come as many times as need be to answer whatever questions there are. And so the other portion that you referred to, the departments are available every day of the week to speak to you if you have any questions regarding the requests and the things that they need. And so every council member here has the option to call the department head, go in and sit down and discuss whatever items are in their budget coming up this year. Those budget figures have not been submitted yet, so the finance department does not have anything to come and discuss yet. Once those numbers come back in at that time, then the department heads can come in and explain them to you. But what you're asking for does not exist at this time, and so that's the reason why there was nothing, because if there's nothing to talk about, then the numbers just have not been put together yet.
Mayor, with all due respect, there's plenty to talk about. We need to talk about numbers before the numbers start coming back. We as a council need to have discussions about, we need to have some input about pay raises, for example. We need to have some input as to what we want to spend on health insurance. I'm not interested in having Schwindeman come in here and say, well, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars for this coverage. We need to have some say in what do we need to do to reduce the city's coverage, not coverage, to reduce the city's exposure in some of those items. We need to discuss these things with the department heads as a council, not me individually or not Bruce Rogers individually. This needs to be done as a council, as an agenda item, so that we can move forward and get numbers back that we have participated in, not receive numbers that were given to us at the last minute to expect us to vote for a budget approval. We need to be part of the process.
As I explained to you and had Mr. Schwindeman come in and explain to you many times, because we do not have more than 100 employees, we are not allowed to see the numbers for our usage. If we were allowed to see what our usage is, then we would have a better indication of whether the insurance was going to go up or down. Until these things are put out to the Schwindeman agency to do the comparisons from last year to this year, we have no idea whether our insurance coverage is going to go up or down. You've asked about a 10% reduction. If our usage was good this year, there's a very good chance that insurance policy would come in with a automatic 10% reduction. We have no idea, and we're never going to know, because that's the way the rules work if you have less than 100 employees. So the things that you're asking for, they just simply do not exist and will not be available for the insurance coverage until mid-February probably.
The insurance is one component. There again, the overall personal services has gone from $3.3 million to $5.2 million. The city cannot sustain those numbers. We as council, we have to make some decisions on ways to reduce that exposure. I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I'm not going to let this go away. If we need to talk about this every day for the next 6 council meetings, whatever there is prior to the budget starting, I intend on us having this discussion. We need to be part of this. This council has been involved in an inordinate amount of dollars. I just went through the scenario. We're a little less on the overall dollars that's on the reconciliation of funds. Liquid assets is down $3 million below where it was prior to home rule. Home rule has brought in $14 million. And there's nothing to show for it, because we keep, as a council, setting up here making decisions that are not in the best interest of the citizens of Vienna. We have got to start making tough decisions. It's wonderful when you sit here and talk about the city is solvent. That's great. But we cannot sustain the kind of increases that we've seen over the last few years. We have got to, as a council, get a handle on this.
If you look at the growth that the city of Vienna has experienced in the last 5 years, the building permits, the expansion, the services that we provide, I truly believe that the value has been invested in our community, in the departments that we have, and the services that we provide to our citizens. In all of the meetings that I go to where we're compared to the other 231 cities in the state of West Virginia, Vienna ranks at the top. And that didn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we've been very blessed to have tremendous economic growth, and the fact that we're, the third best city to live in the state of West Virginia based on quality of life, and we're the fifth safest city in West Virginia based on FBI crime statistics. I think that those things go a long way. And the fact that we have a fire rating with the insurance industry that equals a paid fire department speaks very highly of the investments that we've made. And so, over the last 3 years that you've been here, you've had every opportunity, as well as every other councilman, to look at every document that comes out and ask questions and make whatever suggestions that you want. I personally find that if I have a question and I go to a department head and I say, why do you need a loader? I get to go look at it. I get to see what's wrong with the old one. I get to know all of the details that you can't express just by saying the floor's rusted out. But when you climb up on the side of this 23-year-old piece of equipment and you can look right down through the ground, then you know that you've pretty much worn it out. Or when you look in the side of the motor and you can see holes in it, it's pretty much on its last leg. And so those are the kind of contacts that I would encourage each one of the council members to do, is to go out and look, because when the department heads come back with the requests that they make, then you'll have a better idea of why Chief Pfeiffer needs 2 new cruisers, or he needs a bulletproof vests, or whatever he's requesting. It's those kind of things that, the interaction, and every one of the department heads will spend whatever time that you need to show you why they're asking for these things. We may not be able to afford them, but some years, we do, do the things that we need to make our community better. I honestly believe that the direction that we need to do immediately is to look at our 5-year plan and our 10-year plan and our 20-year plan, so that we can at least make plans for the things that our community would like to have, and work in that direction with the budget that we have being as conservative as we can be. And so I would encourage each and every one of you to reach out to the department heads and ask them, what's on your mind this year.
Mayor, I agree with everything that you just said. It's nice to have all the, the businesses that comes into town, the Hobby Lobbies. That's great. But I would respectfully state to you that if we want to continue having those types of successes, we have to have a handle on our expenditures. We cannot keep doing what we've been doing and see those things accomplished. And your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, I'm with you 100%. Again, that's something council needs to be talking about. 5-year plan, 10-year plan, our infrastructure. That needs to be a long-term plan, whether we're talking about transite water lines, whether we're talking about sewer lines, or whether we're talking about streets. I mean, and a lot of this is just simple math. If you take a blacktop street that's properly installed and properly maintained, it has a lifespan of about 15 years. Inside the city of Vienna, we've got roughly 60 miles of streets. Do the math. You divide 15 into 60, it says you got to blacktop 4 miles of streets every year just to stay even with where you're at. This past cycle, we did less than 2. So what happens? We get farther and farther and farther behind. But we're spending the money that we're spending, but yet we need to, just to stay even with the streets, for example, blacktop 4 miles of streets every year. We're not doing that. We've got to start doing that. And we have to start looking at the other infrastructures. And we have got to start watching our monies that we're spending. We got to look at increasing efficiencies, reduce spending, and cutting costs in order to make all of those things happen. A 5-year plan and a 10-year plan is absolutely essential. I agree, but the funds have got to be available to support it.
Okay. Any other comments this evening? All right. Jim, thank you for attending. We appreciate it, and I hope you get to feel better.
Well, thank you. I'll have comments next time.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
It doesn't sound very good.
Like that moving, just frog and start getting it.